Welcome back, MTG Joe here, and today we're here for another weekly installment of the weekly meta breakdown. This particular video is for the historic format, looking at both best of 1 and best of 3 decks on the arena ladder. So if you're new here, what we do is each week we look at the top performing decks, as well as kind of the most played decks in the respective arena categories. And we're getting this data from Untitled Chapter. It's a companion tool that's free to use that runs alongside your client, and it tracks your win rates, your collection, suggests decks you can build, stuff like that. So like I said, it's free to use. The link is in the video description down below, so you can click that link and download it for free. So jumping in, we are doing historic today. We'll start off with best of 1. We are looking at the week of January 2nd to January 9th, platinum to mythic rank, and a sample size of 42,000 games of Magic played. The top win rate deck for the week is Rakdos Arcanist. So this is the Luris version, a self-milled deck that's looking to bring back Croxa, flashback spells with Dreadhorde Arcanist, and then you have DRC and Citrus Spire fill your graveyard. We have the discard effects in Inquisition as well as Thoughtseize. This version is interesting, it's only on a single Faithless looting, so playing more proactive cards and less all-in necessarily on the graveyard, kind of with these Faithless looting cards. Some of the versions I've run into have also moved to the Claim the Firstborn Village Rights package, which is good when we look at the second most winning deck, which is Selesnya Squirrel Twin, the Heliod Scurio combo. This deck generally has creatures that get very large, Voice of the Blessed or Trelasara. So there's a way you can kind of steal their biggest creature with Claim the Firstborn. This deck is quite popular on the ladder. It's a life gain deck, infinite combo. If you're unfamiliar with how that works, you get any of these Soul Sister style effects. Creature enters the battlefield, you gain a life. You have a Heliod out, and you get Scurry Oak. Scurry Oak, when it comes into play, it puts a life counter on... Scurry Oak comes into play, gains a life, you put a counter on the Scurry Oak. Scurry Oak's counter triggers the ability, it creates a token, gains you a life, yada yada yada, infinite life, infinite tokens. Sorry, give me 1 sec, my dog decided to pop in. Always the fun of a creator. A quick second doggy visit. So what we have then is Enchantress. This is a prison style deck that looks to lock your opponent out from dealing damage with the 9 lives Solemnity lock. Basically, you can't your players can't take that player can't take damage. They can't lose the game through means of damage, and then they kind of have an engine of drawing cards with stuff like Sithis as well as Enchantress's Presence. The Sterling Groves provide Shroud, which gives you a way to protect all your kind of combo pieces. They win through their Approach the Second Sun, or making very large land tokens, or a copy of the Sigil of the Empty Throne. The next deck, and this one I'm very, 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 very happy for. This is my mono red deck. I actually made the top list. So there's a couple versions of this mono red shell going around, but this particular configuration is one I've been working on for a very long time. Through a number of seasons, and we'll see my personal win rate 61 and 25. So I've contributed 86 of the 110 games for this particular list. So if we look at this one and then we compare it to this one down here, these versions are in the Torbrand and Goblin Chain Whirler heavier versions. With this particular meta, I found it to be a lot more effective to have the full suite of 4 Ferocidons, 4 Roiling Vortex, but also just having access to Static Discharge as a removal spell, but also burn that scales 3, 4, 5, 6 damage depending on the copies you cast, has been really, really good. This card's won me countless games, as well as just handles cards sometimes you just need removal. You need to kill a 3-drop, you need to kill a Dreadhorde Arcanist, stuff that Stomp doesn't do. And then basically what you're trying to do is, with the Reckless Ringleader, give your creatures haste. So giving something like Akari Zev haste, or Burning Tree, or any of these threats as well is really good. And then finally, I'm playing Chandra Torch of Defiance. Arguably one of, if not the best Planeswalker in Historic. This is just a way to get card advantage. A lot of times you dump your hand, but this just allows a little bit more added value. It's removal in terms of 4 toughness creatures, which kind of usually gets around if you're, say, a Righteous Valkyrie, stuff like that. It's also just kind of ramp and just kind of another way to get ahead. I'm opting to go with the 2 Castle Embereths and 3 Den of the Bugbears. You have a lot of weenie creatures, so pumping sometimes is really good, especially against control-y style decks where you maybe don't want to commit more to the board, but you can play, just pump your mana into this and kind of have your existing threats and just scale them a little bit larger. So like I said, with Untap, this is really cool because it tracks all your win rates. I dropped Rahilda for Karizev, went 7-1 with the list, so you can see, what did I lose to here? I lost to Dragonstorm combo. But you can see like all your kind of things you play, win rates. Oh no, I lost to Slivers. Slivers of all decks. So yeah, that's my mono red deck. Very, very happy when I make these lists with my variations or brews. Next up, 5-color Dragonstorm. This is a all-in combo deck. You're looking on turn 4 to flashback. So have Dragonstorm in your graveyard with either a copy of Bladewing or Terror of the Peaks. You could flashback Mizzix Mastery targeting Dragonstorm. That gets you enough storm count, creates an infinite loop where these Bladewings see each other. Legend rule creates a enter the battlefield, leave the battlefield loop, dealing infinite damage with Terror of the Peaks. There's also the Reanimate package for Skull of the Lost Troves to cast back a spell that gets you more storm count. There's Velocomist to cast these cards. There's a Emergent Ultimatum, which could then get copies of Dragonstorm. So there's a lot of variations, and you're kind of churning through your deck with cards like Faithless Looting, Cathartic Reunion, or Thrilling Discovery to kind of put cards in your graveyard and combo win like that. See Golgari Food, which is basically just the newest iteration of these food decks, a little bit more grindy, low to the ground. It's using stuff like Squirrel to get really big, and basically winning through a Cat Oven drains. It's a Cat Oven deck like True and True with Meat Hook Massacre as its sweeper of choice. We have Jeskai Gearhulk control, pretty stock, 5 sweepers, looking to Gearhulk back Mizzix Mastery. Is this one even on Mizzix? They're not on Mizzix. So this is just the value Gearhulk, looking to control the board. You have Helixes, Commit Memory, Narset Lock, Shark Typhoon as a win condition. So they completely moved off that, which is interesting. We have Auras. This is a Hushbringer deck, which is very, very powerful in this format. Lots of ETB style effects. So it's a way to kind of get around that. Throw on a bunch of Auras on Core Spirit Dancer or Shram. They draw you a bunch of cards, and you just kind of go huge like that. All that glitters buffs your team. This gives them blockable. You have flying. Just a lot of ways kind of around that. You protect your spells with stuff like Selfless Savior as well. Esper Reanimator. This is kind of an all-in Reanimator as early as turn 3 thanks to Priest of the Fell Rites. You could bring back something like Elish Norn, Massacre Worm, Sarah's Emissary, which can give protection from creatures typically, Sheoldred, or Jin-Gitaxias. So kind of a control-y shell that self-mills, and then you get a fatty on turn 3 or 4. This is the other version of Mono Red Aggro. I find Torbrand too slow. It's a little bit win more. You need to have it on board. The only plus side of Torbrand is with Chain Whirler, it deals 3 damage per ping to each creature as opposed to 2. But I like having the 4 Bone Crushers. Bone Crusher also breaks 9 lives lock, which is good, as well as the Sarah's Emissary damage protection. I think this card's very important in best of 1 if you're playing a red-based aggressive deck. Twin we saw, Reanimator we saw, Angels, pretty much a stock list now, just adding Inquisitor Captain for more copies of Collected Company. And then we're kind of in the dumpster range. We see Madness and Phoenix, which typically isn't as good in best of 1, since there are a lot of linear aggressive decks that can just outpace it. So that's best of 1. Looking now at best of 3 and the top performing deck. So 10,000 games versus, I think we're at 42,000. Top deck Golgari Food in a slightly different variation. This is a Yawgmoth one, and content creator Nerdy Steve has really been playing this. Every time I see his stream, he's basically jamming this into like the top 50 mythic. So Yawgmoth gets to sack creatures to put -1/1 counters and draw cards. You have Hapatra, which when it deals damage, it puts -1/1 counters, but when a -1/1 counters goes on a creature, you get to create a snake, which is more sack fodder. And then there's a copy of Chatterfang, which when you make tokens, you get Squirrel as well. The Squirrel plays really well because it's any token. So if something like Cauldron Familiar Food token or Goose, or the treasure token, it gives you just more tokens that way there. So kind of an interesting revision to this deck. We see Azorius Control, which is a Strict Proctor list. Basically counter the NTB. It's a Lotus Field deck, so what it's trying to do is, Lotus Field generally has the downside of you having to sack lands, but if you have Strict Proctor out, you just don't pay 2. It doesn't make you sack the lands. You have Stifle for the ability to just stop that trigger as well. So a couple different ways to shut that off. It's got a bunch of sweepers. This one's pretty hard control. It's primarily winning through Approach the Second Sun or the Shark Typhoons, this particular list. This one's real boredom control. Discontinuity to just cancel your opponent's turn altogether. We have Is It Phoenix? This one's looking to play some Delvers in the main. Just kind of all-in Phoenix, some Fading Hopes. And then in the sideboard, you have Crackling Drake. So when they bring in Graveyard Hate, you just go big with a big, scary Drake. This is the stock Algari food. So we see slight difference and significant win rate for the other version. And then finally, 5-color Niv, which is always just... every time we look at these Niv lists, they're slightly different. You always have the stock cards, your Territorial Kavu, your Nivs, some copies of Clarion, Vanishing Verse, Helix. Sometimes there's a Klothys, sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's multiple bindings, sometimes there's none. We have Teferi main sometimes. I always joke, like, the way a lot of these 5-color Niv decks are built are filter arena for gold cards, click until you hit 60, submit your list. Deck generally is okay. I personally don't like playing this deck just because it's too easy to kind of just lose to your own mana. There's enough inherent variance, so I like to just kind of have it so your deck plays out fairly consistent. It's a very big top end, but it's a lot of 1-for-1 removal. So if your Niv doesn't land or you don't draw a Niv for a game, then you're kind of just 1-for-1ing and losing card parity a lot of times. In any case, that is it. The decks I've been personally playing in Historic, I haven't been playing too much because, like I said, I've been very much into Cube. If you want to get Cube content, I'm 21-4 over 3 cubes, 3 7-win runs. I have a couple videos up explaining all my choices, everything like that. So if you want to check that out, this is my kind of go-to grinding deck that we saw on the ladder. I was trying out a couple different decks, tokens, black-white vampires, Dragonstorm. This deck will be up for a video, if not already, depending when you catch it. It's a Chandra and Taxes kind of Blood Sun, Strict Proctor, Lotus Field deck with like Esper Sentinel, Mana Tithe. This deck was very good. We only lost to like a really aggressive Gruul deck that was on the play. But that's it for Historic. As always, if you do enjoy the content, if you can, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And we will catch you next time. Thanks for watching.